Hi everyone, this is Margaret Jackson. I am back and I am going to do a couple of things, but before I do that, happy holidays to everyone. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. We're wrapping up the holiday season with New Year's being tomorrow. Can you believe it? This year has been so unusual and it's gone by in a slow hurry. Can I say it that way? A slow hurry. And so we are turning that corner. We're hours away. Because I didn't do a November members only message out webinar, well, not really a webinar, but these little tips and things that I give you, I'm going to do it today, and I'm going to do the November and December. And I'm going to be with you a little bit today just because I want to really get you thinking about 2021 RFQs, RFPs. I get asked about how to respond to an RFP, how to respond to an RFQ, how do you write a grant, how do you write a proposal that there is no RFQ, there is no bid, there is no grant, and how do you go after resources and as a for-profit when it comes to grants, and for-profits can get grant funding. There's some strategies to that, but I just kind of want to give you an overview of what you should be thinking about going into 2021. And the reason is because 2020 was so difficult and different for everything, for life, humanity. We lost a lot of lives. We lost a lot of businesses. We've been in a recession. So there's a lot of things that are going on, and which means that you have to think about doing business in a different way and getting strategic, bulk selling if you can, and RFPs and RFQs and those sorts of grants for large organizations can help you do that. Selling one at a time is a challenge, and that's doable as well, depending on what your online platforms look like and what you're doing. Those are certainly tools that you can use, but I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about giving you some insight on how to write a response, how to do business with your state, with your cities, with large corporations also will put out RFPs, and how do you become part of that? And sometimes large corporations that are putting, and this is across the United States, so whatever state that you're in, find out what their guidelines are and guidance on doing business with small businesses, and get connected. And you're going to need to be connected. And with the pandemic, we're not out of the woods yet. It's great to have some new hope with the vaccine, but we're still going to be in this a little bit, and which means that you need to find different ways of doing business, and then when things get back to what we consider normal, nothing's going to be normal again. You're going to have new pathways of doing business that you didn't think about, in addition to the way you were doing business prior to the pandemic. So let's get started. And I am going to go to a screen here. Wrong thing's up here. Let me get a new page here. Was looking at something for my son. He is an animator, illustrator, and so I'm going to do a search RFP. If you're not sure what that means, and you can see I've been doing a little bit of research here. City of San Jose. I'm in Silicon Valley in San Jose, so we're going to use my city as an example. But before I go to that. RFP is request for proposal. RFQ, request for quote. I just scratched my head there. And then proposals, grants, pitch decks, other ways of doing business, proposing business. And again, that's for another day. I'll probably break that down as well at some point. So City of San Jose bid opportunities, just do a search here. And so I'm looking for here bid opportunities, City of San Jose. So when you go into a site, especially a government website, you're always going to find how to do business with that city, how to do business with that state. Learn it. And if you want to do business in other cities and other states, then you're talking about collaborations and partnerships. But right now we're talking about doing business wherever you're at. And so I'm going to scroll down here and I'm looking consulting professionals, and this is through December 31st, 2019. So this is kind of old, but it'll be fine for what I want to show you. So we're going to look under consulting. This is purchasing. You can see equipment, supplies, materials, information technology, non-consulting services. BidSync is BidSync is a company that will show you the bids, and sometimes they want you to pay for what you're seeing or to actually bid. I do not recommend that you pay for bidding on anything. The state of California no longer uses BidSync, and I'm surprised the city of San Jose is still using BidSync. I am on BidSync, but anyway, so you can see all of these RFPs, and ignore bid has ended. My goal here is to show you how to respond, how to look for bids, how to, once you find a bid that you want to bid on, or an opportunity you want to bid on. So for example, this graphic design RFP. So let's click that open. And I want to step back for just a minute. So like down here, event coordination services. Okay, so don't count yourself out and think that you can't do business with your state or your cities or any municipalities that is within your sphere that you want to do business. You really should bid. If you have a strong response that you can give, you should bid and let them count you out. Don't count yourself out. The state of California buys goats to eat the grass because it's cheaper than hiring someone to cut the grass because they own so much land. So you just never know. So we're looking at this bid, this RFQ, and I'm going to click on the documents. And so they have a graphic design final revision, and so they probably made some revisions of the document when they published it and giving that final revision. So there's some other attachments that we're not going to take a look at. We're going to take a look at this graphic design RFP or RFQ. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And so you can see this is, again, ignore the dates. I'm not sure why they are showing this on the website that they're old, but again, it'll fulfill the purpose that I have for you today, to go through and encouraging you to do business with your city, do business with your state, do business with large corporations. Get your certifications for your states to do business. Usually there's a certification, and there's multiple certifications. Don't just get hung up on one. Make sure that you're getting the certifications that tie into the areas that you want to bid. I would always recommend getting the state certifications. Your states has reciprocity partners. So if you have their certification, then that certification can go a long way with not just doing business with the state, but corporations that honor that specific certification. In the state of California, it's the California State Certification. And we'll look at the DGS website in just a moment, the Department of General Services. So when you're looking at an RFP and RFQ, they're going to detail out everything that you should be doing. You should look at the introduction, the scope of work, the desired qualifications, terms of agreement, compensation and work hours, submittal requirements. And so you can go through this list. And when you are looking to respond, and this is only 31 pages, the whole document, read through the whole document. Read through the whole document. But before you read through the whole document, the first thing that I typically do when I am looking at responding to a proposal for a client, I'm looking at desired qualifications, and I drill the clients before we really get into them spending a lot of money with me to do this. Are they really qualified? That's really the question. Oftentimes, those that want to put in a response to proposals, they get hung up on the dollar amount, that it looks great. It's going to help them get out of maybe the hole that they're in, or the ditch that they're in, or it's going to expand their business. But the real question is whether or not you're really qualified. And if you're not, then don't waste your time. And so you want to scrutinize what the qualifications are harshly. Don't give yourself a break. Harshly scrutinize to determine whether or not you really can do this, and not trying to piecemeal something that they're asking for that you're not actually doing. You have no track record of doing. Be careful about that. So we're going to go look at the desired qualifications on page 4. So we see the scope of work, and so you're gonna look at that. You're gonna read through that, and then are you qualified to meet the scope of work? Ability to produce basic layouts, integrating text with illustrations, and it goes on and on in terms of what the qualifications are. And says, okay, it's great. I look good for this, and I can begin the process of submitting an RFP or response. Let's just say response, compensation and work hours. And so you're giving them the quote. They're not giving you, like some RFPs may say, okay, this RFP is going to be $220,000. In this case, they're giving you the scope of work, how long, the anticipated agreement, and so you're going to give consultant hourly rates. You're going to give them the quote. Now, will a city pick the lowest bid? If they qualify, yes. If they qualify, absolutely. They want to maximize their dollars, but I wouldn't encourage you to underbid to try to win a bid, and then you're essentially losing money. So you just kind of have to go with the industry standards. If you want to give some sort of price break, because they're a government agency, then that's something to look at. But I would stick to what the industry standards are, and then and look at past awards and see what they spent. And so you can request that from the government agencies. What were the past awards? What did they spend, and what did it look like? Then that will certainly give you an insight on what the expectations are. And so we're gonna. And then they go through the fee structure, and remember, when you win an RFP, it's not, especially if there's an amount like $220,000 that they're saying, okay, if you win this RFP, you're going to be awarded this amount of money to do the job. Well, governments don't front load the resources, the money. You may have to front load when you work, which means that you may have to float the work for 30 days, 60 days, usually not more than 90 days before you get paid. Once you're in that cycle, then typically you'll be in maybe a 60-day cycle, 30 to 90-day cycle. 90 days is a little long, so 30, 60, 45 days is typical. Unless, of course, you run into a government shutdown, and then that changes the game a little bit. But remember that if you have to front load, if you have to float it, then you have to think about your resources and how you might do that. Now, there are resources that once you start doing this sort of process, that there are lending agencies that will lend against these types of awards. So they actually front load, and then you pay them once you get the resources. So, but keep that in mind. And so you're going to go through your RFP, and you're going to read all of your information and highlight, scribble on it, ask questions. If there is a bidders conference, you want to go to the bidders conference. And if there's more than one bidders conference, even though they're pretty much talking about the same things, go to all of them, because you get to see who you're competing against. So it is always worth going. And again, the questions that get asked are important. And usually the questions that are asked are posted on the website of that organization for you to be able to go back and look. But if you want to know who you're competing against, go to the bidders conferences. And sometimes it's optional to go, and other times it's mandatory to go to at least one. But in any case, I would go to all that's available, because it's just going to be in your best interest to go to these conferences. And so the contact person, and you want to make sure that you hit those deadlines. They are not, 401's not going to work to turn in your RFP and turn it in exactly the way that they're telling you. You're going to write the RFP exactly the way that they're telling you. Usually it's a Times New Roman font, 12 pitch points, 1-inch margins all the way around. And so, and sometimes you're making duplicates with the original. And so you want to make sure that you are following the guidelines, following exactly what they're asking you for. So proposal representations, you're going to go through all of the, and again, RFPs and RFQs differ in what might be on that form. So we're at the attachments, and this is pretty good. It's not as depth as you would do. Like I've written the RFPs for the Small Business Development Center for Ohlone College to be awarded the program, and the questions, they'll propose their own questions. And a question may, and I was hoping to see one in here, and I don't. They don't really have any questions in here. But you're gonna go through all of this information, and you're gonna verify, and you're gonna make sure that there's no conflict of interest. And I would love to show you a proposal that. Well, actually, here they have questions here. Statement of qualifications. So technical capabilities, experience. So you could do a capabilities statement, and you should have one anyway. If not, put one together. You can do a search online for a feasibility or feasibility or capability statement, and make it sharp. Make it, try to keep it to one page. Make it look really sharp, pop, and it'll be impressive to your state agencies and your city agencies. Describe your experience working with and using FTPs. Okay, so these questions are really easy. And what I mean by that is that it's just one question, right? Describe your experience working with and using FTP sites, file transfer protocol, for those that don't know what FTP is. Describe your ability to do original illustrations and technical drawing. When you have an RFP that's more elaborate, you might have 3 or 4 questions within that one question. And what you want to do, say these were all clumped together, what you want to do is pick that question apart and answer each piece in the order that they've asked the question. So if there's 2 or 3 questions within one question, don't just answer the first part and not answer the last 2. Answer everything. And you want to take your time and make sure that you have well thought out responses, answers, and what you're doing is selling your company, selling your services, and that you actually can do the work that they're asking you to do. And again, I wish they had in this RFP. This RFP is, because I've done so many of them, this one is kind of simple. So there could be really great, and here's some questions here. Questions. Okay, so let's see how this conflict of interest form. Do you have any official, professional, financial, or personal relationships with any person, or that might affect your judgment? This is not really what I'm looking for. Conflict of interest, they're looking for that. Usually, well, in some RFPs, and I'll use SBDC as an example again, we'll have pages of questions for you to go through and to respond to. In this case, they're requesting a proposal from you, and they're giving you the liberty to respond in a more relaxed form. Although this is formal, it is a little bit more relaxed than an RFP from like the Small Business Development Centers prime contractors. So SBA funds SBDCs, but SBDCs have a prime contractor. That prime contract will put out RFPs to the community or to a region, and the region will respond to those different RFPs depending on where they're located for subawards. And so those subawards can be quite hefty, and then you're responding to questions. All questions, inquiries must be made through the contact listed. So this is all information on how to kind of put in this RFP, but you have a lot more freedom on how you're going to respond in terms of your narratives. And I could show you, I wish I could show you the RFP that I submitted on behalf of the Ohlone Community College District, but that would be inappropriate. But the questions, and I'm just kind of scrolling through here, everything that you see in any proposal you want to respond to. These attachments, proposal certification, request for contracting preference. And although I can't talk about each piece, the most important piece is, first, does anything disqualify you? What are they asking, and are you disqualified? And then if you're not, and you can move forward. Remember, I was talking about you might have to submit multiple copies. Submit one original and 5 copies of the statement of qualifications, and clearly label the envelope with this information. Okay? Don't do anything different when you're responding to an RFP on your proposal. Don't put little, cute little things. Just straightforward, keep it simple, give them exactly what they want, other than your narrative and abilities to be able to, and there might be some creative ways for you to do things, and you can certainly create graphs and charts and narrative responses. But when they're telling you to how they want this information submitted, if you do not submit it according to what they're asking, you will be disqualified. And if you have hired someone if you've hired a professional is not going to go outside the guidelines. If you're doing it on your own and you color outside the lines, you will be disqualified. It's part of the process. And so here they're asking the original signature version is to be clearly identified as original. So you also have to identify out of those copies, submit 1 original and 5 copies, which means you're submitting 6. And then that's going to be identified as original, and copies are to be clearly identified as such copies. So see attachment F, statement of qualifications. And so we could scroll down to look at that, but include 1 electronic copy of the proposal on a CD or DVD in PDF format, including the rates for services, and then submit 1 original copy of the rates for services. So you're like, why should I go through all of this? If you are awarded, what happens is it gets you into this new cycle of being able to bid on other projects, and you actually get very good at it. And it can really change the game for your organization and for your company. Not only that, if a corporation is doing an RFP, and again, they may be even more flexible and relaxed on how that bid is proposed, and you add that you have a certification with your state, that gives you an edge. Now, by the way, in the state of California, if you have the Department of General Services certification, you get 5% or 5 points, 5 points in your favor. So you do get an edge. So if you're competing with a small business who you have the same exact qualifications, you're both great graphic design companies and all of that, and you're certified and the other one's not, the state of California is going to go with you. They're going to go with the person who's certified. And the reason is one, they have a mandate. They have a mandate to do business with a certain amount of small businesses in the state of California, including disabled veterans, and they have to procure a certain amount of business, 25%. So it is in their best interest to go with, even if your proposal is a little bit higher, they want to meet their goals. So and here copies shall be double-sided. So we'll go back to this 8.5 by 11 recycled paper. Minimum of 20% post-consumer waste. You're like, Coach, does that really matter? It really matters. It really matters. So you would go to Staples or to your Home Depot and make sure that you get the right type of paper, and they'll know. Provide a 1-page cover letter signed by an authorized representative of the firm. They're asking for a portfolio. Submit no more than 3 work samples. So bring your A game. So whatever you have, that's your samples that are fantastic. You want to show that samples from public agencies, nonprofits, or social marketing projects are preferred. So you're going to give them that 1 brochure, 1 public display item, and 1 item of your choice. Label all samples with your firm's name and title of the project. So again, you're going to do exactly what they're telling you to do. And here, limit your mini portfolio response to 1 double-spaced type page with 1-inch margins. Remember I told you 1-inch margins. Most of the time, that's standard. 1-inch margins, Times New Roman, and real people are reading these proposals. They're not sending it like through some sort of database or some sort of a database is the wrong word. They're not sending it through some sort of electronic whatever. You've got a committee that is going to read through these, and they know what they're doing. They're seasoned, and they know what they're doing. And what they want to do is disqualify those that they can disqualify quickly, get out of the way. Why read the whole thing if you didn't do it right? So, and then they're left with those that did it right. And I'm sure you always have some that don't get it right. So this is an example of responding, things to think about when you're responding to an RFP. In this case, you would go out to the city of San Jose and become part of BidSync and have an opportunity to bid on a project. Now, what I would say, we've got here in 2021, we're going to be looking at the new stimulus package coming out. Let's talk about that for just a second. I am going to actually, let me not talk about that just yet. I'd like to see what we have here. I'd like to go to the Department of General Services for just a moment. I know this is a little bit longer, but again, this is November and December combined, and I want you to go into the new year with some fresh perspective. So this is the state of California's website to do business with the state of California Department of General Services. And they have about 15 to 20 reciprocity partners. So once you get this state certification, that is going to connect you with all of their reciprocity partners in terms of your being able to do business with them. And they talk amongst each other. So when they're doing events, right now everything's on Zoom, make sure you're going and getting to know these people. They will remember you. Send them your feasibility statement and put that together, capability statement, put that together. But I wanted to show you something really cool. This is a page in the resources statewide procurement data dashboard. And if you look down here, you can see what their spend has been. You can see, let me see if I can scroll over. Certification spend comparisons. You can do statewide contract spend. And I thought what was interesting is their tech spend was higher this year. And I believe due to COVID and everything going online, that there's a lot more tech spend across the board. Even with small businesses, you're probably spending more on technology as well. I'm just going to step into this analytic. I'm going to close these out. And as I said, I was doing some homework. So these are non-IT goods and services, which means that it could be anything that they're buying in here. And this is in the billions. The state of California spends about $9 billion, $10 billion a year in general. And 25% of that spend has to be spent with small businesses. And say, well, maybe you're out of state and you want to do business in the state of California, and you have a service that you could provide for the state, then you would partner with a business in the state of California. And then you have to watch when you're doing stuff like this. You have to watch out from doing pass-throughs. For example, say you're in another state and you want to do business. You have a small business here that has a California Department of General Services certification. You partner up and say they're not really doing anything and you're just passing through. So pass through is not, for lack of a better term, it's illegal, but it's not a crime. But the best way that I can put it is that it is a wrong way of doing business with the state. They do not want you passing through and then just paying the small business, and that small business is not really doing anything to provide the services that you're agreeing to, because you might end up being the prime. So if you're the prime, which you would be the prime, and you're partnering with a small business here, you can't just pass your business through and they're not participating in creating that product or service with you. So, and if you get caught doing that, they will blackball you. And it is a nasty, which means that everyone is in trouble. Okay. So you don't want to do that. Be careful about that. That goes on. I am not a fan of that practice, but you can see some of the spin that's happening there. And I think this is where we can go to kind of look at some of the dollar amounts of spends. Yeah, so you can look through, and they've had advertising, graphic design, services, legal services, financial insurance services, and you're looking at, what are they spending? And remember I said you can go and look at, or if you're putting in a bid, find out what they spent before on that same thing. And so that way you can get a comparison and where you might want to land in your proposals when you're doing something. Now, proposals that they're telling you the dollar amount, then you're obviously going to speak to how you're going to facilitate, for example, an SBDC program. And when I did that RFP, I had an advantage. I was a lead advisor for the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center. So when I saw the questions and I knew all the answers, I could respond and give them, talk their language. I was able to talk their language. In fact, so much so to the point that we were told that our proposal was so good that no one could compete with it. They competed, but they were so far behind what we had done that it was exceptional. And that's what you want to do. And again, we had an advantage, right? And so if you're in this industry, if you're working with these organizations, then that will give you that edge as well. So as we go through, you can see that they're spending a lot of money. And again, you want a piece of that money. And so you might not see what you do on here, but you have to understand there's a lot that goes into producing services or products or whatever is happening. So you may be a sub-awardee on a prime contract. So don't get just hung up on, well, I don't actually do that, but I wish they did this part. I could do this part of that process. Then that's where you want to look at partnering with the prime contractors, because they have to also make sure that they are doing business with small businesses. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. And with this pandemic, you've got to find a different way of doing business, bulk business. Who can you do bulk business with? And how can you get your resources and your money faster? And those are the things that you want to think about, because you want your cash to continue to flow. And one way of doing that is partnering with the right organizations and making sure that you are targeting your customers right. So if you are you still have to kind of do that door knocking one-on-one kind of thing. Zoom is a really great space. We're seeing these types of resources that are supporting businesses, but get your electronic digital footprint together, that you're tied into these different places and pieces that you can get your business moving and flowing, and not just statewide and nationwide, but potentially even international, global business, because that's the world we're living in right now. So that's my spiel. I know it's about 40 minutes in, but this is your November 2020 and December 2020 part 1 and part 2 if you want to look at it that way. I was going to split them up and have 2 videos, but I decided to just put everything together. Usually the video is about 10-15 minutes. And in this case, I've given you about 40 minutes. Think about doing business differently. We're doing that. You can see that with the Small Business Concierge Communications and Digital Media Inc. Our website is under reconstruction. I'm looking forward to seeing the new face of I'm working with our designers to see that. Our magazine should be out momentarily. We are hours away from that launch of the Small Business Concierge magazine. Our publication, our end year, usually we do a fall winter edition, so we're hours away from that. And so we're excited. It looks fantastic. We're going to be dealing with some of the things that we've all had to deal with this year. From COVID-19 to California wildfires, that everything was impacting businesses. But this is to encourage you, not to discourage you. And says, anytime that there's opposition, look for opportunities, look for what you can do to move your businesses forward. And this is not to be we've had so many losses. It's almost, I think that there's this sense of, is it okay for me to dream again? Is it okay for me to move forward? And we've lost loved ones. And I think they would say, live every minute to the fullest. That is always okay, regardless of what's going on. Live every minute to the fullest and give it all that you have. And I think if you've done that, then that's a good day. That's a good day. And so happy New Year to you. Stay safe. Be good to someone out there. Keep the protocols. Let's get through this pandemic. We are in it together and around the world. And I look forward to doing much more business with you. We've got so many things coming on. We've been kind of silent over these several months of kind of restructuring things because being in a pandemic allowed us to reframe some things and redo some things to create a digital experience that you're going to be able to benefit from. And so look forward to having you on as guests on different platforms that we have. And again, Happy New Year to you and your family. Stay safe. And I will see you in 2021. This is Margaret Jackson, radio show host and publisher of the Small Business Concierge Digital Magazine here in Silicon Valley.